is Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, she is not built for this. She is not built to go on the ring against somebody like Trump, especially on a debate stage. Everybody but wonks will watch her get shredded by Trump on a debate stage. So we're moving on. Now we're back to leadership. Because Yvette and Tone are uncompromising, right? And they can't be bought off, and they can't be silenced. You have to find a way to remove their influence over black people, black voters, and especially these vocal out front ADOS members like myself and others, right? You have to find a way to remove their leadership and their influence from those people who are listening to Yvette and Tone and the people that are carrying that message forward. Now, there's only a few ways in left-ish politics. Well, anyway, left of center politics, from the center to the left of politics. There's only a few ways to silence or to make people stop listening, right? The big one is racism, right? Racism and anti-Semitism. Those are the two big ones that will get people to stop listening to outlets or different voices, right? If you charge them with racism or anti-Semitism, a lot of times you can get people to stop listening, right? So neither one of those fit for Yvette and Tone. So they went with anti-immigrant and fascist, right? That doesn't fit either, right? Because nobody has ever accounted for what people who were saying their immigrant voices were saying to ADOS, right? Nobody ever accounted for that. Nobody ever accounted for the vile things that they were saying, all the things that we're saying that was based in white supremacist rhetoric. Whether they come from black people is irrelevant. But all the lazy, uneducated, all those things they were saying, calling the descendants of slaves lazy, uneducated, you had your chance and you blew it, you don't deserve anymore, this is not your country. All those things that were being said to the descendants of slaves. And the reaction was, for the most part, understandable, right? If somebody comes in your house and tells you you don't deserve any of this, and they want to push you out of your house, what do? You respond in kind, right? Some folks went a little overboard, but this is what happens. You're going to tell me you're not going to tell me how I conduct myself, how I raise my children, how I do things in my house or in my country in this regard. It is just not going to fly. And you're going to catch all kinds of hell doing and saying things like that. And that's how most people react, right? So a lot of that was understandable. So we're moving. So people took that and started saying that Yvette and Tone and ADOS are anti-immigrant, and Talib Kweli took it, and ADOS is trash, and he wrote his little trash article slandering Yvette Carnell, and all of them are only attacking Yvette. They don't touch Tone. Even people who are ADOS adjacent, like Tariq, right, in his FBA, Professor Black Truth, they didn't touch any of the men. They don't go after Sandy Darity. They don't go after Dr. Kevin Cosby. None of those people get a peep, right? Not even a fifth of what Yvette gets, right? So Yvette is a gay woman, a black gay woman on the left, and nobody but ADOS is defending her. In no other context would this fly. No other context would this fly, right? And that's another hint to let you know that, number one, we're on the right path, and number two, a whole bunch of folks are full of shit, okay? So these arguments are so strong, and they're so undeniable, and so rooted in data and law and economics that they are undeniable. And powerful arguments like that have a way of getting to people. So in order to have any influence over the black vote, because the biggest influence of the black vote is basically in two places: the Democratic Party in general, and that is kind of split between the Obama wing of the Democratic Party, who is represented by Joe Biden, and the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which was represented by Kamala Harris, and now it's going to be represented and is represented by Elizabeth Warren. Okay, so those two factions within the Democratic Party command the black vote. Right, everybody else splits what's left. I know. What's that boy's name? From 538. Anyway, the dude from 538, I forget it. Nate Silver. He caught hell for calling Bernie's part of the black vote a residual. Voters are residual. Caught hell. I'm not even getting into that. He caught hell. He deserves to catch hell every chance people get to give it to him. So, in any event, those are the forces that pretty much can, at this point, that has a hold on the black vote. The black votes that are in play, the ones that don't fall under that one large umbrella of the Democratic Party, and the two factions within the Democratic Party, and the remainder of black voters that fall under Bernie, and it's really atomized across the rest of the field, right? ADOS as a faction can pull enough black votes from any of those groups beyond those two top groups, the Obama wing and the Clinton wing. Everybody else is in play. Right? ADOS, as I'm looking at it now, has influence over the remainder of those votes, and maybe even some of those votes that are under the Democratic Party umbrella. So that's really important, which is another reason why ADOS had to be silenced. Right? What these forces want on the left and the center, what they want is more pliable leadership over ADOS. Right? So they had to be connected with Pfeiffer. It had to be connected with Tanton, with John Tanton, who died in July. So Tanton's dead. Yvette stepped down from Pfeiffer, and even when she was there, she was there to do work on to study how immigration affects black people, and it does. I've linked the studies in my article, actifypress.com/native, actifypress.com/native. I'll put a link at the bottom of this article, right at the bottom of this this podcast. So that whole thing was to keep ADOS from influencing black voters and pushing them to demand more for our vote, which we always should have demanded more for our vote, because we are the most dependable Democratic voters, and we are the most valuable block of voters in politics, right? Bar none, right? So we have to be very well in Democratic politics. Bar none, we're the most valuable block of voters, right? Because everybody else is split, right? We're in the 90% plus for Democrats. Everybody, the remainder, Asian and Hispanic groups, they're in the 50-60 range, right? 50-60% range, right? Based on how the Democrats treat us, we probably need to be in the same range. But as far as Democratic politics is concerned, especially on a national level, our vote is absolutely invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. So, dictating or having any influence over a large group of black voters means a lot, and it's extremely valuable. Especially a group like ADOS, who can kind of knock on all these doors, even from across the political spectrum. ADOS knocks on all these doors. Even bullshit black conservatives who are over there with the Republicans, right? You talk, they're over there for money. They're over there. It's about money for them over there, right? It's not. They tell you it's ideology, but it's about money over there. Okay, so most of them have a little money. They want to keep their taxes down, or they trying to hustle. Trying to make a little money like Candace Owen. Trying to be the favorite black conservative, the black conservative of the day, like Larry Elder, so forth. Most of them are over there for those reasons. Okay, you need a token, you can call it, right? But at the end of the day, it's about cash. Cash rules everything around, right? So when you talk about reparations, you get their attention too, okay? And across the political spectrum. So something like ADOS that reaches across the political spectrum is very, very powerful. You have to understand that an organization or a group or a movement like ADOS with uncompromising leadership is anathema to our current electoral system on a national level, and in some regards on a state level. A dedicated focus group that's dedicated to the uplift of black people is nightmare fuel for centrist Democrats. Nightmare fuel. It's also nightmare fuel for leftists, for centrists or right-wingers posing as leftists. Because there's a lot of folks that are just here for one thing or another. I'm just here for the Medicare for all. If it wasn't for that, most of them will vote otherwise. Or, that's their thing. Okay? But when it comes to reparations or the repair of specific American slaves, they got no time for that. Nah. So they have to silence that talk because they know the value of the black vote. So they have to shift us away from that leadership. And they'll try to place anybody else, somebody who speaks a little more softly, somebody that doesn't have as convincing arguments. That's who they want in front of this reparations movement. And we cannot, I say again, we cannot allow that to happen. Can you imagine what we would have accomplished if we didn't have to wait for Martin Luther King to become radicalized? Right? If somebody who was talking economics before in the early 1960s as opposed to after the 1965 Civil Rights Act, right? So, and that's really what happened, is that leadership, the leadership that was less compromising, was more aggressive, and in some ways more violent, because they knew what they were up against, right? A lot of these folks came from the South, grew up in the Jim Crow South like my parents did, and they knew exactly what they were up against. White terrorism is some of the most violent terrorism in human history. Okay? So be very clear about that. And it's sanctioned by the United States government. Sanctioned and or enabled by the United States government. Folks knew what they were up against and they were ready to ride. So what the powers that be did was they used their money and power and influence over media, just like the Democrats are doing, and put a more malleable face on the front of the reparations movement. That's what they're trying to do, but we're not allowing them to do that because we keep pointing back to ADOS 101. Even when I write, I don't pin all of my arguments on what Yvette and Tone have said or done. I kind of I try to use arguments that I've developed on my own as well, and I piggyback off of their arguments as well. But I also write it in a tone that people who are on the fence can understand. Right? That is still real. But the people who are on the fence or people who don't know which way to go, because to a lot of people, calling a black movement for reparations for the repair of the descendants of slaves, especially when we're facing genocide, it doesn't make sense to them to call them fascists. It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense to call this movement anti-immigrant, right? Being self-interested doesn't make you anti-anything. And again, to likely misquote, but we're going to say paraphrase Malcolm X. I'm not anti-white or anti-immigrant in this regard. I'm pro-black. If you view that as